All right, so I'm just a little flat-footed here right now. It appears that Sean has performed.
Oh, you're trying to mess with me today. Hey, not under my watch. So for anyone who doesn't have, obviously can't see what's going on this side, Two's thought he was being sneaky. He took my sound clip of the Edmonton Oilers, "Let's Go Oilers," and he put it back in as "Let's Go Oilers" with a different song. And obviously I caught it, and I didn't tell him anything.
Oilers suck.
Right.
Oilers suck.
Thought he was gonna be clever.
Oilers suck.
See, because he was supposed to come in and be all like, "Ooh, I like the Oilers so much," and then he hits the button, and then
it doesn't, you know?
and then it didn't, and then it was just the regular "Let's," and I was like, "That son of a bitch."
You know it, too.
Oilers suck.
Oh,
That song's
boy.
like 2.5 minutes, by the way, if we want to change up the
The
intro song. Yeah.
intro. Welcome to Mashup 105, where Twos almost gets me, but he doesn't.
Oh,
Almost. How's everybody doing this morning? How's Twos this morning?
he's a little frustrated. I don't think that's the first time. Like, it was just so clever, and I've never done anything like it, and I've just been waiting, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, that Twos is flustered. How's Sean?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I got no complaints. Obviously, we had the Cornerstone Forum this
Yes.
past
I
Saturday.
was just about to ask.
And I've been talking about it all week on the podcast. It was a lot of fun. It took a lot out of me. I'm literally just getting my voice back, I feel like. And certainly going to an Oilers game with Alex Craner, one of the
Mhm.
speakers, and giving him his first taste of the NHL. What a treat that was. I lost it all over again being there. And no, I'm doing great this morning. I tell you, we're going to bring up the Coots 2, 811 days. They've been now in remand. So there's that. That's Christopher Carbert and Anthony Olnick. I think that's something to point out all over again. I got a happy Airborne Friday to Jamie Sinclair, wherever his travels are taking him. And then a thank you to anyone who made their journey to Lloydminster this past weekend. We had people as far as New Jersey, Arizona, Virginia, and then in Canada, people flew in from Vancouver, drove from Winnipeg, flew in from Toronto. So you kind of get a feel.
Drove from Ontario.
28 hours. Yeah, that was probably the longest drive.
Virginia.
Yeah.
There was.
It was quite the eclectic group of people who descended upon Lloydminster to a sellout, I might add. It was a sellout event in Lloydminster, and yeah, it was great. You were there too. So what did you think?
I thought it was wonderful. I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting that Western separation just comes up in an offhanded thing, and I tend to think that I'm a bit of an outlier in terms of that. But there was a resounding applause when people were talking about how broken Canada is and how maybe it would be better if we weren't part of it anymore. So that was good. We got what is this about Sean? So Matt DeJong, I think what needs to be talked about is that Sean was on TV and didn't do the double barrel like Harley.
So years ago, Harley went. This is a short little intro story here, folks. Years ago, Harley, one of my brothers, went to an Oilers game at home opener and gave the old the double barrel, the double finger behind, and got escorted out of the building. And I know he doesn't love me telling that story, but we've joked with him since.
Why was he? Who's he flipping off?
Nobody. He was having fun. And
was this on the Jumbotron or something?
It was as they were introducing each individual member, right? Home opener. So he was literally sitting right behind the bench.
Oh, it's not like there were so few people in the audience that they were just introducing both of the fans that came to the game.
Not at all. And so now his nickname is the Birdman. When we do the Brothers Roundtables, he's the Birdman.
It should be Harvey Birdman, not Harley Birdman.
Well, there you go.
Attorney at law.
No, I did not.
No.
My phone blew up on that day. I'm like, man, I'm TV famous right now. The amount of people who texted me who saw me singing the national anthem. There you go.
You were right behind the bench, or you were on Jumbotron,
no, on Saturday. Saturday on Wednesday.
Well, whatever day you were at the game.
Wednesday. No,
where were you that people saw you on TV?
Literally in Edmonton when they sing the Canadian national anthem, right? I was on the national television feed. They were just scanning the crowd.
A big place. Rogers is a big place. Where were you that you ended up
in the stands? They literally standing and singing? What does it matters to us? What the hell are you trying to get at?
Was it like?
What are you trying to get at?
I'm wondering if you got featured on. You know how every once in a while they'll just like point this camera at somebody for a little bit. Did it have your name on the bottom? Like, did somebody recognize you? And was like, when they look at the people in attendance stuff, and then does it say Sean Newman?
No, they definitely did not do that. They literally scanned the crowd while the national anthem was being sung, and I came across it. I don't know why you're so confused by this. It's like
because you do a shit job of explaining it. This is why you do the interviews and don't answer them.
I tell you,
God.
Mashup 105 starting out with a bang. Twos is somewhere else today. He's just upset
I feel like
because his joke didn't get picked up at the start. I thwarted him, folks. And the Edmonton Oilers are moving on, and he's upset about that too. Now, Twos, you wouldn't defend yourself last week. You didn't want to take the LA Kings, and we're 6 minutes in. Can we get to what we're gonna do here? I can banter the hockey game with you all you want, because we are moving.
Obviously not, because you suck at just explaining something simple.
I think you have something in your ears and you can't hear. So there we are. Okay, shall we start? Needle in a haystack. Police began their search of the Saskatoon landfill Wednesday as part of their investigation in the 2020 disappearance of Mackenzie Lee Trache. The search is scheduled to last 33 days long, and Mackenzie Trache is the one they're looking for. She was 22 when she went missing and was last seen December 21st, 2020.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting. This is the same thing like we talked about with Winnipeg and them wanting to dig up a bunch of landfills. Have you ever been to a city landfill?
Yes.
They're like literally like Blackstrap. Remember? Blackstrap used to just be this giant landfill. It's just a giant pile of garbage. And then to just say, okay, well, we're going to look for one dead person in there. It's insane. Like, good fucking luck. Like, I get the fact that there's a family that's missing somebody, but the amount of effort they're going to go towards in terms of trying to find this body that's been gone for 4 years. They said they had to dig out 960 cubic meters of stuff on top of the layer that they're looking at. That's how far gone this is. I don't know. If something's in a landfill, it's gone.
I don't know what to say, because I feel for the family. One, you're like, okay, I feel like they must have a lead that puts them in that range. I'm just kind of curious, how they got to. We're going to dig that far down, and we're pretty sure it's there. And then the next question,
Oak Island.
And then the next question becomes if they don't find anything, then what? Do they keep digging?
They're going to say,
over?
Okay, well, we should keep digging, or we should be a little bit more exhaustive, or maybe we should go over this again. I don't know, man.
It's a tough one. Thinking about getting the band back together. Governor Ron DeSantis signed legislation Wednesday banning cultivated or lab-grown meat in Florida, placing it within a conspiracy by global elites to destroy agriculture in the interest of fighting climate change. You can tell I'm reading the article here. It also makes it unlawful for any person to manufacture, for sale, sell, hold, or offer for sale, or distribute cultivated meat in this state, punishable by up to 60 days in jail. Food establishments that sell or serve the stuff are also subject to penalties, including loss of commercial licenses. Quoted, what we're protecting here is the industry against acts of man, against an ideological agenda that wants to finger agriculture as a problem that views things like raising cattle and destroying our climate, DeSantis said.
I get where he's coming from, but there's a simpler way to do this. You just tell people to try it. Just be like, how would you feel about it being grown in a petri dish? Okay, you're not comfortable with it, then don't buy it. You maybe pass laws making sure that it can't be tried to be passed off as actual fucking meat. But this isn't something where you need to ban it outright. You just be like, okay, well, look, if you want to sell it, you just got to make sure people know what they're buying, and then nobody will.
Yeah, I don't know. Would you try lab-grown meat? Would you be like, yeah, screw it, I'd try it for once? I'd
want to know more about it first, but I wouldn't be, I don't know. I ate a veggie burger one time.
Yeah, they were talking about lab-grown meat. I'm just fundamentally against it, and I'm not trying it.
I knew more,
I understand where DeSantis is coming from.
If I knew more about the process and I understood it, I'd be unwilling to try it with my current level of knowledge. But if I knew more about it and I felt safe trying it, I would try it. But just
They're
to
literally
say I did.
growing an organism in a lab to sell to you. I don't want to try it. I don't want to try it.
That's okay. I would just,
Yep. I'd
like
try
I said,
bugs. I would try
it.
bugs. I would try bugs before I'd try lab grown meat. That's where I'm at.
No, I try lab grown meat before I try bugs.
Well, I guess we're just fundamentally different on our opinions, and that's fine.
On
I'm not saying I'm
everything.
going to eat bugs like long term. I'm just like, okay, it's bugs. All right, whatever. You're literally artificially altering organisms to try and sell to the general public. I'm not for it.
Yeah, and you're gonna eat some weird fucking 6-legged scuttle creature?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd rather have the petri dish cow.
All right. Well, when we get both of those folks, we'll do it live on air and we'll see how it is. I'm sorry. I thought this was America. Twos, you have, I think. Are you going to show the tweet of Jagmeet?
Oh, I totally forgot about that. I got so excited with all of this.
You know,
okay, we're going to get to this stuff later, but here's just a teaser, folks, of how dumb Jagmeet Singh and the NDP across the country have been this week.
Will say you're not willing to take the step of voting against them or forcing an election because you'd lose. And you'd lose big in the next election. I looked at 3 separate polls. Angus Reid had you at 19%, Abacus at 17, Nanos at 16. Your fundraising is 6.8 million compared to 35 million for the Conservatives, 15.6 to the Liberals. Are you just not forcing an election because you don't think you can win?
We're going to have an election, and I'm ready to run as Prime Minister for this country.
More.
Sure.
That's on power play.
She just
roasted
eviscerated him.
Yes. She torched him. And he's like, "Oh no, I'm still going to run for Prime Minister candidate." You know, probably you shouldn't. You probably just step away right now.
You should probably just fucking quit politics altogether and maybe read a book. Okay, all right. But now let's go back to.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. A man allegedly harassed a bison at Yellowstone National Park by kicking one of the animals. He was then injured and, in return, arrested. It's like you're harassed a bison. What a poor choice. That is a poor choice.
This is an animal with horns on it that is the size of a fucking truck. Okay? I got to show Jack one on the drive out here when I picked him up at the airport. And then as we were driving through Elk Island National Park, which is the worst named fucking park ever because it's full of bison and not elk. Anyway, yeah, we got to see a bison there. Could you imagine, like, how dumb do you have to be? How little do you want? Like, it's made, more or less. You're going to go up and, like, it'd be like...
That's the type of maid I could get behind.
Well, here's the thing. I don't get why this should be illegal.
Bison.
Why are you going to arrest this guy? Why are you going to fine him? If you are dumb enough to attack an animal the size of a truck, which is known for aggression and has pointy fucking horns on the end of them, I think that should be totally fine. Things that are obviously going very steeply against your own self-interest in terms of preservation should all be legal. Okay? If you're dumb enough to do this, the punishment's there in itself.
I agree. I really agree.
All right, finally, common ground.
Who's your favorite Animaniac?
Wacko.
For the kids that don't know, that was great. That was you go back and watch that cartoon now. I'm like, this is a strange cartoon. And I think
good.
I even thought it was strange back when I was a kid. But okay, Pam Demoff won't seek re-election, citing fears for her safety and disgust with toxicity in politics.
We're talking Wacko first, and then we're going to get to the retirement.
Wacko. Oh, man. You got twos. You're doing this to me again, where you've flipped things around. All right, fine.
We don't have an entire weekend for the news cycle to settle. We got to kind of go with some things.
Think about this for a minute. Okay, so we're talking about Pierre Poilievre being removed from the House after calling Justin Trudeau a wacko.
Yeah.
And then saying, I'll change out the term. He does it multiple times. He says radical. He says extremist. And essentially, he is still removed. Okay.
To be fair, which I would say that Poilievre is very easily in the right on this. The first time the speaker told him he needed to retract the word, he said, which was wacko. And then he changed it to what you were saying. But then after that, the speaker said, no, you actually have to retract the whole statement. It's like, but you just told me to retract the word. And so anyway, it erupts in this huge fucking firestorm.
Twos, can you do me a favor for the listener, the watcher? Can you pull it up on your Twitter so they can hear it? I think it's a 2-minute clip, but I think it's probably worthwhile for Canadians to hear actually what was said. It's on Twitter. If you just search, I don't know, Pulayev and, remove from the House, because it is really important for people to hear what happened than us just trying to distill what happened, because it is quite wild. I can narrate it, but while Twos is bringing that up, here's one of the tweets that I'd pulled up. It said, the party that wants to regulate speech because of misinformation, disinformation, posted straight up lies about what went down in the QP yesterday. The same people are telling you conservatives are a threat to democracy are okay with the Speaker of the House yesterday allowing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to call Pierre Poilievre spineless and falsely say he's actively courting white nationalists, but still ejected Pierre when he did withdraw the word wacko. These are the people acting like fascists and authoritarians. These are the people that are a threat to our democracy. If Twos can pull it up, I think it'd be worthwhile to take the 2 minutes. Okay.
British Columbians have died of drug overdoses, but he continues to allow those drugs to kill the people in our hospitals and on our public transit. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No. That is not. There are a couple of things which are going on here today, which is not acceptable. And I ask all members, please, to control themselves. I'm going to ask two things. One, I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that term, which is not considered parliamentary.
And then he does that exact
Mr.
thing,
Speaker,
but it's
I
not good
replace
enough.
wacko with extremist. He is an
The Honourable Member to please. I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition once again to just withdraw that comment, please. And I'll invite the Honourable Member. I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to please withdraw that comment and simply withdraw that comment.
I'll replace it with radical leftist policy.
I am not asking to replace. I'm asking
literally
the
did.
to just simply withdraw.
Okay. Anyways, it goes back and forth for another minute here, but this is the gist of it. And then
I think it's really important to hear it, right? To hear
and
what.
I think also it's really important to point out how many times people use the word wacko in Parliament. It's pretty damn common.
Well, once again, whether you like the word wacko or not, he asks him to replace wacko, and so he does, and he says extremist, and he doesn't like that, and he's and on and on and on it goes to radical, and I mean, it's interesting to me, right? Like that entire thing is very, very interesting.
And then you have multiple Liberal MPs outright lying about what happened. Here's the video. Does that line up at all with those other tweets you showed? No, it's completely different. Right?
I agree.
And then they wonder why this stuff keeps happening.
The rats are fleeing the ship. Pam Demoff won't seek re-election, citing fears for her safety and disgust with toxicity in politics. She's in the suburban riding of West Toronto. She says Demoff, the 3-term MP for Oakville, North Burlington, who was the first elected in 2015, told her Liberal colleagues about her decision Wednesday at the party's caucus meeting in Parliament held that she would not run. Now, Twos, I don't know if this has anything to do with it. I mean,
do you think
for those for those listening, it's Oakville West. It's a poll and showing the support. 96% say they're voting Conservative, or odds of winning. Sorry, odds of winning is 96%. The Liberals 4%. You don't think it has anything to do with that?
No. It couldn't possibly be that. Now, to be clear, she's the MP for Oakville Burlington, which is now being split into 2 ridings.
Correct.
One being Oakville West and the other one, I think, being Oakville East. And this is the more generous of the two polls that only has the Conservatives at 96% chance of winning that riding. If she was to go in the other riding, her chances would be half of that. She would have a 2% chance of winning instead of a 4% chance.
There you go. So, you read between the lines and you go, we know exactly why she's not running. It has nothing to do with the toxicity and everything else, but you love their speaking.
They've been wallowing in the fucking toxicity in Canadian politics for years. Why would they ever want to stop? It's been this sleazy, greasy hate train that they've been riding all the way to the station. And now it's just that it's about to go off a cliff. So they're like, yeah, I'm just going to jump off at the last second.
The best way to deal with these sort of things. Utah officials were forced to blow up a house in a controlled explosion after the homeowner found old dynamite. The Unified Fire Authority blew up a house in Holiday at 4 a.m. April 24th after the female owner found large amounts of old dynamite stashed in her deceased husband's belongings. According to the officials, the explosive material had been passed down from generation to generation before the elderly woman found it. Because of the age and the crystallization, deterioration of the product, it became way too dangerous to handle. Even taking one stick out could have created a significant threat to our personnel, they said. So what did they do? They blew up the house, too.
Yeah. And you might ask yourself, if this was just a regular sort of thing, when would you want to blow it up? You know, what would you want to do with it? Well, you know what? I mean, it's an explodey thing. So maybe I might want to do it in the middle of the day when everybody can see what's going on and there's lots of emergency services around. But you say, what would be a slightly more awesome way to handle this? Let's blow it up in the middle of the fucking night so we can get real good camera angles.
I was wondering that, but my logical thought, I don't know if this would be the case or not, would be because they evacuated everybody, so nobody's there, right? So
yeah, so they got everybody in hotel rooms for the night rather than just saying be at work.
And my question was, you wouldn't have been able to have them at work. That wouldn't have worked because you need to have everybody out of there. Okay, even though they're at work, I get what you're trying to say, but at the end of the day, they're going to blow up a building. You can't have some mom with the kids home. They'd have to evacuate her. Anyways, I wondered if it was the fire so that they could see it. So that if it caught anything, they could go extinguish it. Would that have anything to do with it at night?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm not an explosive expert. I feel like this is kind of a niche thing. Like if there was somebody whose job was to go around blowing up old ordnance, like, are you guys taking resumes?
Yeah, I know. That's my next thought. I'm like, how do I get this job? You know,
Yeah.
It was an old grenade a couple weeks ago, me and Tuesday were talking about. Now it's old sticks of dynamite. It's like, feel like there's a few people who would like this job and we could dispose of it. We'd figure it out. You're going to allow us to blow up a house in the middle of the evening? We're going to evacuate the entire town for this? That sounds like a job I want.
Yeah. I mean, I find it really interesting, though, that they didn't just evacuate and try and just get a robot to put them in, I don't know, a thick steel container.
Box.
And then, if it blows up, fair enough, we're out a robot. Instead of just being like, okay, take your commemorative plates, little old lady, and a couple crocheted blankets and whatever else you think is important, and we're just gonna blow the rest of it to shit, right? Like this can't have been good advice. Like this had to have been some local cop being like, well, obviously the responsible thing would be to get a bomb robot, see if they could put it gently into a container, and then move that to the middle of nowhere, and then blow it to hell and back. But you know what would be even more awesome is if we just tell this little old lady there's nothing we can do, and we just blow up all of her cat-shaped teapots.
Behold the field where I grow my investment capital and see that it is barren. Edmonton-based Capital Power Corp says it is no longer pursuing its proposed $2.4 billion carbon capture and storage project at its Genesee natural gas-fired power plant. The company says it has decided the project is technically viable, but not economically feasible. Capital Power says it may explore carbon capture and storage again in the future as economics improve.
I don't know what to say about this. It's just the latest string. I haven't had anything invested in Canada in a long time, aside from hard assets. And I don't really know anybody who does. And everybody else is saying, hey, this would totally work. We could do this. But the math doesn't add up. And when people are deciding to do things in other jurisdictions based on the math, what they're saying is that the government is fucked and they're charging too much in terms of things like carbon taxes. See, that's the thing. This is a carbon capture initiative, and there's no exemptions or even incentives for carbon capture, despite the fact that we need to save the planet and there's no planet B. And so if you say, okay, but we're taking all of the carbon and we're sequestering it. First off, the liberals, it's too big of a word for them, so they're not going to know that. But secondly, like, you're literally doing the exact thing that they want, which is having less carbon dioxide in the environment. But it's not about doing it. It's about doing it the fucking way they told you to do it. And don't you fucking forget it, for fuck's sakes. All right, Zane Southgate. How did we get to Friday already? Zane, good to see you, man. It was nice to finally meet you.
It was nice to meet you, Zane. It was nice to meet you.
There was a few people there that you finally just get chat with and spend some time with, and that was really nice.
Bureaucrats forced to work under barbaric conditions. Federal government employees will be required to spend, wait for it, 3 days a week in the office starting this fall.
Jesus Christ.
Now, I'm going to skip over. That's the big thing, okay? This is what the union said. Unions representing public service say they are blindsided and outraged by the new rules forcing federal employees to work from their office at least 3 days a week. The new requirements, which take effect September 9th, also stipulate executives will have to be in the office at least 4 days a week. The outrage! The Public Service Alliance of Canada says it will be filing an unfair labor practice complaint and looking into other legal options. Good on them.
Yeah. We are shocked at this decision, which has been made in secret without consultation and with no valid reason given. How about because we fucking said so? How about because it's your job? And I love how they said, oh, shoot, where is it? Let me find it here.
Well, they would have known what was happening, except they haven't been at work in 2 years.
Yeah,
they're not even at the bargaining table.
We posted it on the fridge in the coffee room 6 months ago.
You want us to come to the bargaining table? Can we do it virtually? It's like, well, no, the bargaining table is actually at the office. You got to come to the office.
Yeah, and then they said, so we're shocked at the decision, which is made with no valid reason given. He said in a statement, we will not be taking this lying down. Motherfucker, you're working at home. You're literally taking this lying down.
You can't make this up. You can't make it up. Big gay phallus. Oh, man. Okay. Shovels have hit the ground. What you're staring at is the projected look of what this thing is going to be. Shovels have hit the ground for construction on Canada's LGBTQ2S+ National Monument in Ottawa. The historic milestone was commemorated at an event on Wednesday afternoon hosted by the LGBT Purge Fund, with the monument's design team attended by representatives from the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation and the federal government. The monument, called Thunderhead, is being built to commemorate and honor the victims of Canada's LGBTQ2S+ purge and others in the community have been marginalized for who they are. The monument will be built in Ottawa on a portion of land tucked behind the Supreme Court of Canada.
Okay, first off, the LGBTQ purge that they're talking about is when the federal government, them, actively dissuaded gays from joining the public service and tried to push a lot of them out of it, which, I mean, let's be honest, you're doing them a favor. Okay? But they're saying it's a bad thing. And so this is what you're looking at right now, Sean, is phase one of this, where it's going to be an LGB monument. And then you're going to have some crazy blue-haired protesters tear it down, in which case it will also be trans at that point.
They're going to knock. Yeah, all right. I see
Naturally,
what you did there. I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Okay.
Alberta John says, finally.
Yeah, this is the monument we've been waiting for our entire life, Sean.
Oh, that's good. I don't know. All right, not the bees. Not the bees. All right. I'm going to pull it up here because it's pretty cool. Okay. LA Dodgers game was delayed because of bees. Literally. Like, look at them all. And then here, I'll see if I can get it. We don't need the audio. What we need is just the video. And of course, I got a thing in front of it. Come on, get out of the way. There we go. There we go. This guy sucked up all the bees, okay? And so here
with
he
a
is
vacuum cleaner, like
with a
not
vacuum cleaner.
personally.
And then he literally got to throw the first pitch, and they treated him like he was an absolute hero from World War epic proportions. There you go. And he threw the first pitch.
He did take on 1,000 bees. So there's that. But yeah, just imagine that call. Like, hey, we need you to go to Dodger Stadium. The game can't start because there's too many bees. We're wondering if you've got a vacuum cleaner that can help with that.
I wonder if you got a solution. He's like, well, I could just suck him up with a vacuum.
Yeah, I got a shop
vac. Do that? You can do that?
Yeah. They'll suck anything, wet, dry, you name it. So, yeah. It was nice. It could almost been one of the happy newses.
Liberal conflict of interest of the week. Ooh, I like that as well.
How many times does it have to happen?
I don't know. A lobbyist with business ties to federal cabinet minister Randy Boissonnault met with the high-level politician staff in 6 federal departments, including one where Boissonnault was also associate minister. The meetings, which took place in 2021 and 2022, helped raise $110 million in federal grants for the Edmonton International Airport. In legally mandated public disclosure listing his possible conflicts of interest, Boissonnault posted the legal name of his consultancy, which was an Alberta Corporation 2050877 Alberta Ltd. He did not, however, disclose its trade name, Navis Group, which then went on to be awarded contracts at the Edmonton International Airport dues.
Yeah, so the whole thing is just a tiny little bit of separation so that it seems mostly legal. Now, here's Michael Barrett on Twitter, who is a conservative member of parliament. So, yeah, he's got a partisan interest in this, but he lays it all out, and he's got all these arrows going around, and you've got any financial benefit between 2020 and 2023 is the solid line, and then you've got the dotted line, which is non-monetary relationship. So Randy Boissonnault and Kirsten Poon, who took over his company, and look at all of this. And really what he should have done was included numbers in it. But literally each one of those little dots is the literal fucking millions.
Yeah, it stings to high heaven. But it's when you say conflict of interest of the week, I'm like, yeah. Like, this is becoming more and more apparent that you get into the government. The story reads, he disclosed. He is plausible. I did disclose. Disclosed 2005 Alberta Ltd, the company name. What he didn't disclose is the trade name and one of things on its Navis Group. And the only way you could have possibly known that is if you
do an $80
right. And so as a politician, you're thinking nobody's going to do that, right? Nobody's going to pay $80 to go dig.
Well, no one's going to accidentally stumble upon this to even pay the $80, right?
Correct.
Conflicts are a feature. Glenn, you're absolutely right. That's the thing is that, you're like, well, technically I didn't do anything illegal, even though actually my former company, which is being held by a trust and is currently being ran by Kirsten Poon, made literal millions of dollars off of this greasy fucking situation.
Correct.
All right.
Don't bite the handout. The Saskatchewan NDP's recent criticism of political lobbyists has backfired. During question period on Monday, the government revealed that an NDP email in which the party requested sponsorship from a lobby firm that it had previously criticized. Mm-hmm. Oh, the turn of events, Twos. The turn of events.
Oh, how the turntables have turned. So the NDP, who Canada-wide is just clawing with their fingernails to maintain a shred of legitimacy. Saskatchewan, it's not looking too good for them. They're only saving grace in Saskatchewan right now is that the Sask party keeps kicking themselves, like just putting their feet in their mouth and kicking themselves in the ass and all sorts of self-harming, physiologically abstract euphemisms. And that's all they got going for them. The NDP is not a serious party. I don't know if you've ever heard me say that before, Sean. And they've They've run out of all the usual suspects, and they're just like, we need some money from somebody, anybody. And so they're reaching out to the same lobbyist groups that they're publicly shitting on to be like, hey, yeah, so we hate you, but can you give us
some money?
Yeah.
And
then
it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Michelle Krieger, the hypocrisy in the SK legislature is ridiculous. I am inclined to believe you.
Universities done lost the damn mind. Well, let's start here, okay? Columbia protester spokeswoman demands humanitarian aid be sent to the starving students in their encampment. Do you want,
like, the cafeteria is still literally open?
Quoted, do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill? You should provide basic humanitarian aid. Okay, so let's start here. Okay, this is a tweet saying, does anyone else find it odd they all have the same tents? This is Yale encampment, this is UW Milwaukee, and this is U Michigan. Okay,
they all have an overwhelming majority of the exact same tent, all set up poorly, by the way. There's not a single bit of tight plastic on that. And then also, so they're all the exact same tent, which is pretty statistically unlikely.
Then, well, just think about it. You go to the camps,
you go camping. When do you ever see somebody with
your same tent? Very rarely. Almost never, actually.
Yeah, instead of like this entire statewide protest, everybody has the same tent.
You might be able to argue, if you went to just one spot, let's say UW Milwaukee.
There was a deal or something.
Yeah, and they all went in and got the same tent, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. But when it pops up everywhere, you're like, something smells fishy here. And then the next one is cops remove these people. Everybody talks about how clean. I always think of the protest in Ottawa and how ridiculously clean it was. Here's what another protest looks like. Okay, now cops went in, so part of it could be, okay, the cops moved them out too quick and they couldn't clean themselves up.
But when these are the people that worry about the environment.
That's right. And then finally, I go back to my initial comments on humanitarian aid, and here's the readers adding context. Her claims are misleading. Per Columbia, campus dining is open, as Tu has pointed out. 2, humanitarian aid is for saving lives in the most dire situations, violent conflict, natural disasters. The students can leave if they want.
So everybody's camping in the bowl or the common or whatever the hell it's called. And they're like, we need food. We're all going to starve to death. And they're like, motherfucker, the cafeteria is open in the next building. You just have to get off your dumb ass and go eat.
And then this is the best, okay? Me and Tu's always love a politician with a great name, okay? A great name. So the press conference jihadist is a PhD student named Johanna King-Slutsky. I'm not kidding you. King Slutsky. I mean, You can't make that up either.
And she was looking at, I can't remember what her major was, but it was something looking at poetry or something, ancient poetry through a Marxist lens. And then, believe it or not, she's
my dissertation is on the fantasies of limitless energy in the transatlantic romantic imagination from 1760 to 1860. My goal is to write a prehistory of metabolic rift, Marx's term for the disruption of energy circuits caused by industrial under-capitalism. She goes on to interpret it through a Marxian lens in order to update and propose an alternative to historic ideologies, critiques of the romantic imagination, blah, 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 blah.
Yes, through a Marxist lens.
Marxist everything.
These people are going to be fucking mind blown when they realize that Karl Marx was Jewish.
Here. This is one you wanted me to point out to before we move on and I hit the buzzer. Is Pi Kappa Phi men defended their flag and they started a fundraiser for him. It's up over $500,000 to
for a rager.
For them to throw
a bunch of frat boys. So in one of these colleges, they wanted to go after the U.S. flag in the middle of some area, and a bunch of frat boys stood around and defended it. Those white trash, bunch of partying bad guys that are just doing all sorts of raunchy stuff, all stood around the flag and kept it from being torn down and wrecked. And then somebody started a GoFundMe for them and said, hey, shouldn't we throw a keg party for them? And it's up at over $500,000.
Imagine the party you could throw with $500,000.
That would be pretty damn cool, I think. And Leanne says idiots. I think she was talking about the protesters, not the Kappa.
I believe you're correct.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe Oilers fans.
Leanne. Argentina again. The peso has not only halted its continuous decline, but has also experienced a significant surge in one crucial foreign exchange market. Argentina has several, as a result of its own complex rules in the market known as the blue chip swap, which is utilized by many investors and companies. The peso has skyrocketed by 25% against the dollar over the last 3 months. The performance surpasses the gains of all 148 currencies that Bloomberg tracks against the dollar. This development is quite surprising in a country where the currency appears to be in a perpetual state of depreciation. The smallest yearly decline in the past 10 years was 15%. That's talking about Argentina's currency. So the smallest decline over a year has been 15%, and they've skyrocketed 25% just in the last 3 months.
Yeah, so that's huge. Everything that he's been saying he was going to do. See, it's interesting because lots of this stuff is empirically proven, but largely untested. I don't think there's ever been a situation like what's happening in Argentina right now, where you've got someone going in and being like, we are going to enact all of the libertarian shit. So just sit back and watch how awesome it's going to get. And it's early, right? I mean, I could be eating these words in a year or 2 or 3, right? Absolutely. But early indicators seem to show that having a common sense approach to politics and monetary policy seems to show
working.
Overwhelmingly positive successes.
I had Doug Casey on. He's the international man, worldwide investor, and he talked about Argentina being on the rise. If you wanted to be in a place, Argentina. And, week after week, we keep pointing out that some of the things that Malay is doing is having benefit to that country. Now, in fairness, their country was in absolute ruin, and he stepped in and done what he's so far, to me and twos, staring at it where we read articles. It looks like he's doing what he says and seeing the benefits of that. And it's not coming out just from some Argentina magazine. Bloomberg saying like, holy crap, you're seeing it compared to all these different currencies, and we're starting to see these different things trickle out of there. So it'll be interesting to watch here over the, the rest of the year and probably further on into the in time as well too.
See, and it's interesting in a lot of ways, because on the one hand, you look at it and you think, okay, well, is it so far gone that everything's just going to shit the bed? And no matter what he tries, there's going to be so much institutionalized resistance, and the rot is so deep that he just can't affect any change. But then the other thing is what you were talking about, and I think that's going to be more right as time goes on, is that it was such a shit show there for so long that it's just a slam dunk for him to just be like, okay, well, yeah, what if we just fire all the people that don't do anything? Do you think that would turn the economy around? And then it did. All right, going back to Saskatchewan, Murray Henderson here. Check out the policies of the Buffalo Party of Saskatchewan for the changes that are needed. I mean, I could if we ever saw literally anything from them. They seem like an interesting party. They're the kind of party I'd want to know more about, but can't find a damn thing about on the internet. So, and then we've got Leanne Taylor. Stop being bitter. Maybe the Flames will make it next year.
Probably not.
All right, so we're going to block her just real quick. And
Uruguay went from communist to libertarian.
Yeah. I don't know much about Uruguay, but maybe I should learn more.
We're banning the wrong athletes. 5 West Virginia middle schoolers went who protested a transgender athlete's participation in a track and field competition have been barred from future meets.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to read any more?
No. It's basically that's it. They're like, well, if we're gonna have to compete against a dude, we're just gonna not compete. And then they said, well, wait a second, you can't just decide to not compete. This is like when you go in, like that classic thing of you go into your boss's office all angry and you're like, you know what? I quit. And he says, you can't quit. You're fired. You're like, okay, well, I guess I get severance now. That's literally what happened here. Was this I quit. You can't quit. You're fired, which is a silly, silly thing to do.
Scotland gives its former leader a swift kick in the kilt. Humza Yousaf confirms he is quitting as Scotland's first minister, triggering leadership race. Quoted, I'm not willing to trade my values and principles or do deals with whomever for simply retaining power.
Yes, and so this is a guy who said that there was too many white people in Scotland, which is interesting because, over here in North America, you got this whole thing versus the indigenous people and the settlers. In Scotland, the indigenous people are white. Why does that conversation never happen? Why don't you guys all just go back to where you came from and leave the indigenous people alone to have their harmonious community? Right? Right? But it gets all weird because it's sending people who aren't white back to where they came from, and suddenly that becomes racist. But if it's white people go and just he's been a very silly man saying a lot of stupid things, pro lockdown. He wanted to keep everybody in 15-minute cities, and like Scotland's not that big. I assume it's just a 15-minute island, but anyway, he's not there anymore, and from the sounds of it, good riddance. Now, Trisha Rue, say that 5 times fast. Great to see young students standing up against the woke. Gives hope for the future. Absolutely, it does. And I stopped by there on my way back, picked up some meat.
Did you?
I had the ground beef the other day. There was a big assortment. Haven't got to most of it yet, but made these like ultimate sloppy joes. They were phenomenal. So off to a great start with the
hats off to the Rue family. Lots of time for them. More things that cause fires and aren't climate change. The city of Vancouver could soon be banning the use of one of the type of butane lighter. Report by city staff recommends a ban on the continuous flame lighters, which can be locked in the on position because of the fire risk. Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services said it has responded to more than 3,100 fires since the beginning of last year, many of them in the downtown single-room occupancy buildings where open smoking material is believed to be the cause. So let's ban the lighters too. Let's ban the lighters. That's going to solve the problem.
What would you be smoking that you would just want to lock the lighter into the on position, Sean?
I don't know.
Crack.
Yeah.
You'd be smoking crack.
All that free drugs?
All them free drugs. Well, actually,
would that possibly be the problem here?
Your free drugs for a larger quantity of other drugs, and then they would sell those at more upscale places like Ontario. Okay, but that's why you need a lighter that locks in the on position. It's for crack, and they're banning it because it's causing too many fires. Climate change again, people. Everything's climate change.
Update. Wrongfully imprisoned pastor looking for payback.
That actually sounds like an action movie.
What story is this, Tews?
This is the one where the Korean pastor spent 32 months in jail and then tried fighting it. The charges were stayed. So
this is Daegun Chun?
Yeah, and so now he's filed $100 million lawsuit.
Apologies. Tews does this to me once in a while where we hop. Okay, Daegun Chung, accused by Quebec RCMP of being the mastermind of a Canada-wide human smuggling network, is now suing the force and Quebec's Attorney General for $100 million after all charges against him were stayed. Chun was arrested in 2015, then flown to Montreal and paraded in front of TV cameras before a press conference alleging he was the head of a trafficking ring that forced as many as 500 women into prostitution in various Canadian cities. When he was arrested, Chun was running a private career college in Toronto. He and 8 other co-defendants were said to be running the prostitution operation in Toronto and Montreal. Chun has always denied the allegations. He has no previous criminal record. He admitted he knew 2 of the co-accused, but only as tenants in condos he was subletting. He believes the RCMP mistakenly concluded the school he was running was a front for human smuggling.
Yeah, so they kind of jumped the gun on it a little bit. And then they said, oh, well, if you just plead out, you can get out of jail. And they offered him just a really minor plea deal, kind of a Coots type thing. And he said, no, I'm not taking that. I haven't done anything wrong. And he spent 32 months in jail. And then at the end of it, they didn't even continue with the charges. They just stayed, means that they just dropped doing them. They didn't formally drop the charges. They just didn't do anything until the timer ran out on it, which you wouldn't do for somebody who was smuggling 500 prostitutes, I don't think. Well, maybe in Canada you would. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that for a pastor, not a great look spending 3 years in jail for supposed human trafficking and prostitution. So he's going after them and saying, you guys kind of fucked me over. I would like $100 million, please. And it'll settle out of court, and it'll be probably more than $10.5 million. But
I would
good
agree.
for him for standing up for himself, even if it's going to come at our expense, because we're the ones who are going to
Who will pay the bill? Yes.
Yeah.
Update: UCP takes a step back. In the face of widespread opposition, the Alberta government says it now plans to amend its contentious Bill 20 to further clarify elements that give Cabinet new unilateral powers to oust a councillor as well as to repeal and amend local bylaws. On Thursday, a week after the bill was introduced, Municipal Affairs Minister Rick McIver issued a statement indicating changes to the legislation were coming. Quoted, "We will be working with municipalities to propose amendments to the legislation and clarify this would only be used in a very limited circumstances," it reads, in reference to the ability to remove councillors.
Yeah, I have a lot of suspicion for politicians who say this is we just have this here and we hope we're never going to have to use it. It's going to be used under very limited circumstances, or it's not going to be used at all. You don't need to worry about this. We're just passing it so that it's there. And then next thing you know, we can't get on airplanes anymore. But yeah, this basically made municipal governments irrelevant, or municipal elections irrelevant, rather, because it just gave them veto power over any municipal election. And they rightly got a lot of backlash over it.
Yeah, I talked to Chris Sims about it because I was, there's some things in my rant about it last week that I certainly got not quite factual, but overall, she did agree with the fact that like taking the power out of the people's hands is not a good look, because eventually, you're going to have some government that has now the powers to do what they want. And as it sits right now, Rick McIver and that group have the power to do what they want. We've seen that in Chestermere. Now, where does that all unfold? That waits to be seen. So like the consolidation of it with how it read to me seemed a bit insane. So the fact that it's taken a step back says like we weren't the only ones looking at this going, this makes zero sense. I know they talk about Edmonton being in the article as being really pushing back, but I have to assume there's people all over Alberta that were like,
Because as much as I would love to see, it would be fun to watch them just go into Edmonton and be like, Sohi, you fucking suck. You're corrupt. Get the fuck out. That's not how things work. Now, if you actually set up some decent recall legislation and then that was used to oust him, that would be fine.
Recall.
Funny thing about Chris, though, is that the more you get to know her, the more you just realize that, while she works for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, she's got this entire wealth of she could speak intelligently to pretty much any subject you want to bring up.
Well, she was, first, as I buzz us out of this, with Chris, the lovely thing is when it comes to Canada in general, before she was with the Taxpayers Federation, she was a journalist that covered a ton of things out in Ottawa and then produced radio shows and on and on and on. So she has been staring at a lot of this for a very long time. And one of the things I thoroughly enjoy about her is the ability to take lots of information and compress it down to like bite size where you're like, oh, I get it. Right. And so the recall thing, yes, we are a place in, what is it? The only place in Canada that has recall legislation. Okay. It's still complete and utter BS. Well, and it doesn't work. And we just saw it in Calgary. The metrics for it make zero sense. And that needs to be changed. Great recall that we have it. It needs to be better.
Also, again, in this article, the same thing I talked about last week, where the only people they interviewed for this were politicians.
And now they're going to bring in the municipalities.
No, but they talked to mayors and they talked to councillors and saying, we don't like this because that. We don't like this because that. Talk to somebody on the ground. Talk to some random ass taxpayer, or talk to Landon Johnston and say, hey, you just ran this hugely successful recall petition campaign. What do you think about this idea? Right? Like journalists nowadays have no idea, like even what it would take to to think the way regular people do. They become so detached.
Disappearing cookie article. So, okay, I'm going to pull up the picture of this sucker. Here you go. I think we've all seen these pictures, these cookies at Tim Hortons.
It looks
This
like
one
it got
looks like
vaccinated. Like this is okay. So last week we talked about how there was the Edmonton Oilers donuts, and this week we've got the Edmonton Oilers cookies.
Well, so then you try and find the article. It's all over the place. You can't find it. Here's another image.
Well, yeah, because they deleted it.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there's the Tim Hortons, the
grilled
cheese sandwich that a sports columnist got. And he took a picture of it, tweeted about it. You're like, holy man, somebody hates their job. And probably you understand why.
Yep. And these are the people who want $15 an hour or $20 an hour or whatever it is. But yeah, this is interesting because apparently they because you look at it and on its own it looks kind of funny, but also apparently what they do for this is they get a bunch of local community groups in to decorate the cookies, and then those community groups keep the proceeds. Now, it turns out that there's a lot of special needs community groups who do this stuff, so you wouldn't expect the exact same level to detail.
I'm telling you right now, although this, like, do you want the perfect smiley face? I kind of appreciate this cookie. I'm like, can you imagine looking in the window too, seeing all these different cookies with all different smiley faces? Be like, well, I want the one that looked like it took its 7th jab. That's the one I want. I want to take a bite out of that one.
That's exactly it, though, Sean. Right? When you see all of the cookies lined up in the window, you're gonna say, I want the one with the goofy face, whether it's like somebody posted a picture of one that was just the regular ass cookie, but it was a frowny face instead of a smiley face. You're going to be like, I want that one. Okay. If one of them was doing like a wink or something like that, you'd be like, I want that one. You're not going to go for the same generic smiley, happy face all the time. It's kind of a missed opportunity where they can really have a lot of fun.
Maybe we're pointing out to something that Tim Hortons should be doing. Make a droopy face. People might think it's funny. Yeah.
Have some fun with it. And then you're going to sell more cookies. It looks like Twos is trying to draw after a few drinks. Okay, we got one more person we got to ban, but yeah, all right. Thanks for your comment, Matt DeJong.
The whistleblowing leads in industry fatalities. A second
it's got to be probably one of the most dangerous jobs you can have. Like, it's right up there with lumberjack.
I was wondering if co-vindication meant whistleblowing on an article. That's what I was kind of wondering in this article as I read it, but I'll read it for people and then they can get their a second whistleblower to raise concerns about the safety of Boeing aircraft has died. Joshua Dean, 45, was a former quality auditor for Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems in Wichita, Kansas. He had worked on the Boeing 737 MAX program and filed a formal whistleblower complaint in the Federal Aviation Administration. In 2023, over improper manufacturing practices he witnessed. He'd been fired months before, allegedly in relation for bringing up safety concerns with Spirit management. His death comes 2 months after being Boeing whistleblower John Barrett was found dead, and we talked about this, after an apparent suicide a day after testifying against the plane maker. Dean died in hospital Tuesday morning after his family says his health deteriorated suddenly. He was in critical condition for 2 weeks after he started experiencing difficulty breathing. So maybe they just gave him an extra jab, Maybe that's possible.
Well, I mean, it's like if I wanted to silence a political opponent, I'd tell him to get vaccinated.
We're being removed off of YouTube as we speak. We've said the
basic. Well, no, I mean we're saying, hey, you know what? You should go out and get vaccinated.
Yeah,
that's
you
what
should.
They want to hear.
You should. Yes, you should. Yes.
Yeah. If the Oilers end up making it to the conference finals, Sean, you should totally celebrate with a vaccination.
Yeah,
so this is the second.
This whistleblower Boeing. Yeah, I mean, regardless of how it plays out, they've had 2 of them now go down in like 2 months that were both whistleblowing about them.
Imagine if this was actually legitimate, like where they're just like, well, fuck, like we killed the last one, but now this guy just dies on his own. Now we look really bad. Imagine how frustrating that would be, especially if you're like Hillary Clinton and you're like, I planned some big elaborate thing, and then he went to the hospital before I could do it, and he just died on its own. I'm going to be totally irrelevant to these people. Never. I think she's talking about the Oilers going to the conference final. All right, next one.
Pembina sucks. Okay, this is credit where credit's due. Okay, David Staples, Edmonton Journal here. The Pembina Institute, this is a long one. Okay, the Pembina Institute prepared a 7-page technical brief setting out what it describes as a feasible pathway to meeting the cap. Did you know, and then this is a global cap, okay, emissions cap. Did you know that Gibault and Pembina go way back, question mark? Indeed, Gibault has a good old friend in the Pembina Institute. In 2007, Gibault was already working nonstop to thwart the oil sands, not to mention nuclear power, through his Quebec group, Equateur. With Marlo Reynolds, the then executive director of Pembina Institute, Gibault wrote an editorial pushing the then novel concept that Alberta produced dirty oil. Gibault and Reynolds boasted of grassroots protesters opposing oil sands expansion. It appears, though, that those humble grassroots found their way to a pot of gold. The accounting firm Deloitte found that the Pembina Institute was to get $7.6 million in foreign funding and Equateur $2.4 million between 2003 and 2019. The Pembina Institute has received something in order of 35 grants 35 federal grants since 2017, worth a total of $7.6 million. In a statement, the Pembina Institute said that $7.6 million represented just 17% of its total revenue since 2017. We are a nonpartisan organization, and regardless of where our funding comes from, we work constructively with governments at all levels across Canada. We produce independent research.
Yes, independent research that just so happens to get paid for by the Liberals. And then you end up with people like Samir Kayandi, who I met in person when I was at that thing with Marty.
Yep.
This dude is like 5'1". It's interesting because I noticed since that every time you see pictures of him or video of him, it's always taken from a downward angle looking up. So it gives you the artificial impression of height. And you're like, okay, well, that's on purpose. Like, if you're going to be short, just own it, right?
I could steal a couple things from him, is what you're saying.
Well, no, it's just funny because obviously it's a big deal to him. Because whenever you look at his photography, it's always got the upward angle. Okay, but yeah, so yada 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 yada, and sat on the board of the Pembina Institute. This is the NDP guy. So the next time you think that the Pembina Institute is nonpartisan, they don't produce conservative politicians. They don't even produce liberal politicians. They produce fucking socialists. And David Staples blew the lid off the whole thing, which we all knew already, but it's nice to have receipts.
And it was a good article. It was just a good article. And so many times we crap on journalists, and I think it's good to point out who's writing it. And then it was a great article. It was very interesting. Loblaws girl caught. Loblaws companies reported 13.5 billion in its first quarter revenue, a 4.5% increase for a year earlier. On Wednesday morning, the same day that a group of frustrated shoppers said they would begin a month-long boycott of the grocery retailer. Emily Johnson, a boycott organizer from Milton, Ontario, told CBC News in an interview that its end goal is to be reducing grocery prices and to be increasing food security for all Canadians. One of the group's primary demands is that Loblaws sign the industry-developed grocery code of conduct, a set of proposal rules that govern how major grocery companies interact with their suppliers.
Okay, here's the thing, is that this article, believe it or not, is being intentionally misleading by talking about gross profits rather than net profits. So you say, okay, well, yeah, they don't take into account overhead. It's the same thing as the 8 out of 10 people get more money back. This is the corporate equivalent of that, and it's silly. Here's just plain and simple for anybody who didn't see it when I did the video on it. For every $1,000, if you're spending $1,000 on groceries a month, Loblaws keeps about 30. If you want them to eliminate their profits, that would mean that $1,000 of groceries, if they were just break even, that $1,000 worth of groceries would now cost you $970. That is how much money they're just robbing you. Okay. Now, there's other reasons you could hate Loblaws. as somebody who worked for them like 20 years ago, they fucking suck to work for. They made me anti-union. And we could talk about that, right? But to say that they're just stealing money from employees, yes. Customers, no.
Turns out we don't like vegan food after all. Now, twos, am I going back?
The veggie burgers.
You know, where did the
We literally
veggie?
talked about this.
I know, but I can't find it now. What the deuce? Oh, here it is. Despite a decade of growth and 5 years of intense innovation, sales returned to pre-pandemic levels in 2023. Plant-based meat and seafood dollar sales dropped 12%, and unit sales fell by 19% in the U.S. According to a 2023 GFI poll, half of the adults who tried plant-based meat said they wouldn't eat it again because of the taste. Or maybe it just sucks. You know, it just sucks.
That's half the people who tried it. So that's not just half the people wouldn't eat it again. So presumably more than half wouldn't eat it again because they might have other reasons, like maybe the cost or, difficulty in
Correct.
logistics or something like that. But half the people who tried it said this stuff is fucking gross. Okay? I mean, how many times have we covered articles where they're coming out with some new, super improved vegan thing that tastes just like meat? Obviously not if half the people aren't interested in ever purchasing it again. I remember there was a couple years ago, there was, I don't know, some big natural disaster happened in the States. And the grocery stores were empty. Like all the shelves, there was nothing on them except you had, in the middle of the food, obviously food, in the middle of the meat section, they had the vegan stuff and it was just full. People were like, it's a catastrophe. There's no more fucking food. We're all going to starve to death.
And they're bypassing
But I'm
it.
not going to eat fucking vegan burgers.
Oh, man. Drugs are bad. Again. Okay.
Okay, real
British-
quick. Zane Southgate, twos, it took Loblaws to turn you anti-union. Some of us privileged few have had the advantage of being non-union from birth. Well, I'm going to be the first to admit that sometimes I don't learn lessons easily. Also, it was great meeting you on the weekend.
British Columbia has abruptly reversed course on its landmark experiment decriminalizing the possession of certain illicit drugs in public, citing mounting frustration and disorder in the Canadian province. Premier David Eby said on Friday that he had asked the federal government to reintroduce a ban on public drug use, though personal possession and consumption will still be allowed in private spaces. Keeping people safe is our highest priority. While we are caring and compassionate for those struggling with addiction, we do not accept street disorder that makes communities feel unsafe, Eby said. While the personal possession of 2.5 grams of cocaine, methamphetamine, MDMA, and opiates such as fentanyl will be permitted in private spaces such as homes, tents, and safe injection sites, the police will soon be able to seize drugs if people are using in the public spaces when necessary, and that's in quotes, or to arrest them in exceptional circumstances.
Well, I mean, do we have any reason why they would just do this sudden and drastic role reverse or reversal of positions, even after they fought some of this in the Supreme Court, to just unilaterally throw it out? Do you have any idea why this might have happened, Sean? Any guesses? Oh, they're starting to tank in the polls and an election's coming up.
Politicians are going to be politicians, twos. Don't hate. Happy news. Okay, let's start here, okay? We got a few to get through today. So
Yeah.
let's start here. This is El Salvador's leader. He said
Presidente.
he brought in all of his executive branch of the government and said,
And
we're going to
the
investigate
Auditor
you all.
General and said, or Attorney General, pardon me,
We're going to investigate
and
you all.
said, did this nice big speech about how he doesn't want corruption and he doesn't want the people around him being corrupt. And everybody in this room is going to get fine-tooth fucking combed. And if you're greasy,
we were
you're
wondering how if suddenly he dies suddenly, you wonder if that could possibly be the next story we read. The next one is, heartbreaking for me
yes,
to
and
put on the
me.
Cornerstone Forum to then realize Drumheller on the same day was going to try and break the Guinness Book of World Records of having dinosaur, inflatable
Yeah,
dinosaur
so
costumes there.
that
They
was
had
set in
3,000.
Duntarn last year, and
Yes,
we
we
didn't hear
talked
about
about
it till afterwards. And then
3,000.
yeah,
Yeah. Like, look at them all. Look at all those dinosaurs. We could have been there.
Yep.
Dang it.
so I guess Dee and Kelly were there too. So shout out to them. I would have loved to have been, but I had this other thing that day. So the next time you're gonna book an event, Sean, you just need to be like, look, before we finalize the day, are there any giant dinosaur costume events?
Yes. 100% whoopsie. Next is the city of New York will pay a settlement of over $2 million to 3 white female Department of Education employees over their charges of being replaced by less qualified people of color. The 3 have waited 5 years for a resolution to their complaints, which included former Chancellor Richard Kranz's crusade against so-called toxic whiteness. So there's a court case that got awarded. They're all getting paid about $700,000 for what they went through. The next, a woman who spent almost 30 years in a coma is now alert and talking after her family refused to give up hope for her recovery. That is wild.
That's crazy.
This is it. This is a lady in the United Arab Emirates, suffered brain damage in a car accident in 1991 and never regained consciousness. Onar, her son, would visit his mother every day, walking more than a mile to see her. He said he'd spent several hours with her each day and could tell when she was in pain, even though she couldn't speak. He said it was tough to hold down a job due to his mother's condition, but he didn't regret anything. He went on to quoted, "I never regretted it. I believe that because of my support for her, God saved me. God saved me bigger troubles." So, pretty incredible story of a woman coming out of a 30-year
30
coma.
years, and then she woke up. Could you imagine going into a coma in 91 and then
No.
coming out in this present day and just being like, wait, what do you mean I have to say that they're women now? Wait, okay, so you guys just shut the whole economy down for like 2 fucking years and you didn't look into what possible effects that might have? Right? Everything is racist now? Like everything? Like, just imagine how weird. Think about how life was like in 91.
91.
You're like, oh, I was really looking forward to Sleepless in Seattle coming out this summer. And then next thing you know, you're like, what, Jeffrey Epstein had all of the actors on an island?
Yeah. It would be, you could probably do a movie about it. You could probably do a mockumentary of it.
Well, I mean, just be like, wow, you know what? I really hope Bill Cosby comes up with something good after the Cosby Show ended. Like, had OJ even killed his ex-wife and her boyfriend at that point? You're like, what do you mean nobody drives a Ford Bronco? Just the amount of holes you would have in your just common knowledge would be baffling.
One other good piece of good news this week.
All right, no, this has
maybe
been a good
you've heard this.
This has been a good episode.
Oilers suck. Oilers suck.
Oilers advance. Can't wait. I told Tooz I was going to be insufferable, and I'm going to be insufferable for another week. Let's roll. Vancouver, Nashville. Bring it on. And Leanne Taylor says, so glad I remembered you guys were on today. I also want to bring up the league bracket challenge. You know, I'm going to make sure the next year that we do this, because you can't get involved with it anymore, that we're a little earlier on it so people can get involved and have a little bit of fun with us. You got Weens, that's probably Brent, I would think, or Brian, one of the two, is sitting tied for the top spot with a Gregor's bracket, Sen Stan, Dustin Newman, Glenn Vandeveers, those guys right there, 4 of them. They're perfect right now. And if I scroll down and I keep going, there's Drew McKay, AMC Electrical at 6th. If I keep scrolling down, Peter Moran at 10th. I keep going down.
I saw you went past.
I keep going down. I'm looking for something. There I am at 17th. All right, fair enough. I keep going down.
You're pretty far behind.
Number 25, Vance Crow. Suck it, buddy. All right, suck it,
Scoreless?
Vance. He's at number 25. Just saying.
And then Glenn Giebert's right above him. Hey, Glenn.
Oh yeah. Glenn's right above him. I'll pop that back up. He's got Vancouver. You got Vancouver winning the cup? Not a chance. Not a chance.
Well, I
Not a
don't know.
chance.
There's something in the water out west. I don't know. It's
Okay. And we got Donald Schwartz watching from Nova Scotia. Hello,
yeah.
Nova Scotia.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Okay, community notes. We got a few here. I want to start.
Just one quick community note to get started here.
Sure.
Most annoying fan base NHL fan survey. Number 1, far and away. Nobody's surprised by this.
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
Next one. Nobody's surprised by this. Montreal. 4th place. Hey, you guys are finally high up in the standings on something. 4th place, fourth most annoying fan base.
You know,
Edmonton.
Calgary. You know why Calgary's what position is it? I can't read it. What position is Calgary? What number is that?
They are the least annoying fan.
That's because they're irrelevant. They're so irrelevant. It's not even funny twos. That's why they're on the bottom of that.
It's because they're not a bunch of douches.
See you later, Calgary. Even on the bottom of that on that poll. Okay.
This is like golf, Sean. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept or not, but the lowest score is better in this thing that we're talking about right now.
You're so irrelevant. You're like Phoenix. They're like, maybe we'll just move you to Salt Lake City and we'll boost you a little bit, right? Like nobody cares right now. That's how irrelevant the Calgary Flames are. Now, some other community notes. Aaron Goodwin, Garrett Gregory, June 22nd. That's going to be in Marwayne. So that's happening there. May 11th, you got the Walk and Run fundraiser in Turtleford, Mackenzie Bloom. All proceeds going to the MS Society. A new one, an Injection of Truth, June 17th in Calgary. They're hosting
a good injection for once.
They're hosting a world-class experts to present medical and scientific case for stopping COVID mRNA injections to children here in Alberta. They got Dr. Eric Payne, Dr. Chris Shoemaker, Byron Bridle, Jessica Rose, William Mackus, David Wiseman, MLA Shane Getson going to be there. There's going to be this guy hosting named Sean Newman. Don't know if you've heard of him. And you can get tickets at an injectionoftruth.ca. The early bird price is $29. I'm going to toss that in the show notes for anyone wanting.
Quick, what day is that again?
Monday, June 17th. Monday, June 17th. Oh man.
Oh my God. Spit it out, Sean. Jesus.
Yes. Truth.ca. There you go. It's in the, I tossed it in an injection. Dang it. I didn't get it. Of truth. What am I doing here? And then,
do we need an injunction on your pronunciation of injection?
An injection of truth.ca. There. Ay.
You said the same thing twice.
No, I forgot to put of in the first one. So if you're clicking and trying to get it, that's boy.
Yeah, no, it's in there.
That's what I got this week. Anything from you twos?
Oh no, dude, we've been clearing up the calendar on these things lately. So we need some more. So if anything else is going on,
hit us up, email, Twitter, text. We'd love to know about community events coming around, and we'd love to just showcase it. That's what we try and do here at the end. We got our community notes. We want to help raise awareness on some of the things happening in our communities and yours as well. So hit us up.
And we've been getting a lot of good feedback about the mash spiel. So if you guys have any good ideas, if we apply the mashup model, which doesn't really apply to this, but the whole idea being, what if we did such and such, but in a way that didn't suck? Bond spiels are already awesome. So it's like, well, what would be the best possible bond spiel? Where would it be? What should we do? If you got any bright ideas, hit us up.
All right. 105 in the books, twos. We'll see you next week. Folks, thanks for hopping on with us, and we'll catch up to you for 106 next Friday.